I'm Ireland Viscount, and coming up next on WVU News, I'll tell you how the university has helped West Virginia become dominant in giving out the COVID vaccination.
I'm Sean McAllister, and coming up on WVU News, I'll tell you more about what WVU is doing to make mental health a priority on campus.
I'm Jillian Winoski. Did you know that hunger can have a direct effect on your grades? Coming up next, I'll have that story. Our Emmy Award-winning WVU News starts now. Nearly 16% of the U.S. population has received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and West Virginia is giving out vaccines faster than most states. So things are looking up. I'm Jillian Winoski.
And I'm Zach Cook. But while we're making progress with the vaccine, people are still struggling. Food insecurity, mental illness, and homelessness are all on the rise.
These stories and more on WVU News, an Emmy Award-winning newscast produced by television journalism students right here at West Virginia University.
1 in 6 West Virginians has already received a dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, with states like Texas and Mississippi lowering their social distancing requirements and canceling mask mandates. It's easy to feel like we're out of the danger zone with this pandemic, Jillian.
You're right, Zach. But we still have a long way to go before we're back to normal. And a big part of this journey is getting the vaccine distributed. Our own Ireland Viscount joins us in the studio to discuss how vaccination efforts are going right here at WVU. Ireland?
Thanks, Jillian, Zach. Even though West Virginia is a small state with a population of 1.8 million, we have vaccinated more people than 14 other states. We have also issued a higher percentage of our vaccines than every state besides New Mexico and North Dakota. I went to Morgantown's vaccine site at the Student Rec Center at WVU to learn more. West Virginia has become a leader in giving out COVID-19 vaccinations. Many states are struggling to get their residents vaccinated, but West Virginia has given out 83% of its allowed vaccines. WVU faculty member Tom Baisden says while he is grateful to receive this vaccine, he also feels sad.
I feel a little bit guilty being a WVU faculty member, sort of being pushed to the front of the line. That's the, you know, I see the, you know, just the sort of the need out there, and we've sort of been given that opportunity. So I feel it's our responsibility to promote this as much as we can.
Since January, WVU has been giving out the Moderna vaccination to select faculty and students. This week alone, about 300 people have been fully vaccinated and about 700 people received their first dose. Since West Virginia has given out almost all of the vaccinations they were given based on their population, they are currently trying to receive more doses so they can continue vaccinating West Virginia residents, but there is currently no update if they will be getting more at this time. Clinical assistant professor with the School of Pharmacy at WVU, Heather Johnson, explains how West Virginia got ahead of other states with delivering the COVID-19 vaccination.
We were released on a Saturday and we were there Tuesday already giving out vaccines. So definitely something we've been on the front lines from the beginning, seeing while several other states were only vaccinating healthcare professionals, we were already on patients.
There are currently 3 different COVID-19 vaccines in phase 3 of clinical trials, and once these are authorized, more vaccines can be issued throughout the United States. The Biden administration announced last week they hope to have enough vaccine doses for all adults in the U.S. by the end of May. Other states are already following West Virginia's lead and partnering with local pharmacies and the National Guard to help with the vaccine rollout.
Thanks for that report, Ireland. This vaccine is coming just in time, Jillian. Do you know that 17 million Americans have had trouble buying groceries or feeding their families because of this pandemic?
And a 2020 study found that 36% of WVU students experienced food insecurity. I joined WVU officials during the relocation of the RAC Student Food Pantry to see how the university is combating food insecurity right here on campus.
Cheese, vegetables, fresh water. These are just a few of the groceries students can pack up and take home for free. Since its opening in 2010, the pantry has served over 14,000 students. One of those students is freshman Olivia Dowler, who says the RAC has been a lifesaver.
It's definitely a weight off of my shoulders to have somewhere that I can get like healthy, nutritious food, especially I'm a vegan, so the dining hall doesn't always have that kind of stuff.
Student pantry worker Hawa Diawara said she's seen firsthand how college students battle with food insecurity.
Some students, they'll never tell you that, they're going hungry or there isn't a meal at home. And so for us to be able to have, the rack, it's a useful alternative.
On February 17th, the pantry celebrated the grand opening of its new location, and even President Gordon Gee was there to take part. WVU Dean of Students Corey Ferris says the new location is bigger and better when it comes to fighting food insecurity on campus.
It really is going to help our students and help them in their studies because they won't be hungry and thinking about food.
Upgrades to the pantry were made possible through a combined $60,000 donation between Kroger and Kraft Heinz. Corporate Affairs Manager Allison McGee said that Kroger has a Zero Hunger, Zero Waste initiative.
When you look at the numbers of college students that are food insecure, right here at WVU, 36% of students are struggling with hunger. They don't know where their next meal is coming from.
Research shows that college students who don't get enough to eat make lower grades, have lower test scores, and have a lower chance of graduating.
The rack is open Monday to Friday from 8:15 to 4:45.
All you need to get free groceries from the rack is your student ID. You can sign up for updates on Instagram and Twitter at WVU_the rack. Well, food insecurity isn't the only hardship students are facing because of the pandemic. University police have reported 58 drug-related incidents on campus since the beginning of the semester alone. 75% of these incidents took place in residence halls and were mostly first-time freshmen. Even with this influx of drug incidents, few students have actually been arrested. Instead, police are working with the Office of Student Conduct to find counseling and recovery support for students. Since many of these students are first-time offenders, police are also trying to curtail drug use on campus by offering support services with resources for students to seek the help they need during this very stressful time.
And it's not just college students who are battling drug use during this pandemic. Experts say there's been an increase in overdose deaths across the Mountain State. And now the concern is that people can't always get the in-person treatment since COVID-19 has hit. Health providers are urging residents to download the app called Connections by Chess Health. Users of the app can create a recovery and sobriety plan with 24/7 help from trained doctors, counselors, and support groups. It allows you to track your recovery progress and set goals you want to reach. You can even connect one-on-one with other users to encourage and support each other's recovery. You can use the Connections app directly from your web browser, or you can download the app for free on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
Increased levels of drug and alcohol use, isolation, and loss of income are a few reasons why almost half of Americans nearly report symptoms of anxiety or depression during this pandemic.
Health reporter Sean McAllister joins us now from Studio B to talk about what WVU is doing to combat the decline of students' mental health. Sean?
Zach, Jillian, experts say that college students are experiencing higher levels of anxiety and depression compared to the general population during this pandemic. In fact, a recent report by the CDC showed that about 25% of 18 to 24-year-olds had considered suicide in the past 30 days. Yet, despite this data, students are saying this pandemic is making it harder to access mental health care.
Student mental health in higher education has been an increasing concern due to the stresses of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially for students like Seth Seabaugh.
About 2 weeks into it, I was like, this is terrible. I just want to go back to in-person classes. And then here we are a year later, and it's even worse. It's terrible. I absolutely hate it.
This social isolation due to quarantining and Zoom fatigue have been extra stressors on students' mental health, something Collegiate Recovery Director Olivia Pape worries about at WVU.
Can lead to this increased susceptibility for things like substance misuse, but also just for things like depression, anxiety, feelings of, does anyone notice that I haven't been around?
According to the CDC, 3 out of 4 Americans aged 18 to 24 are reporting poor mental health due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the WVU Caruth Center and Collegiate Recovery are giving students options to promote their well-being.
Being in the same place for the first 4 months of it, I mean, it was it took a toll. I mean, and not just on me, but I know everybody.
Over 70% of college students reported increased stress and anxiety due to the pandemic. PAPE assures any feelings of being overwhelmed during this time are completely normal.
People are exhausted and they're scared and they're overwhelmed, and that's a completely human response.
And if you find yourself struggling with mental health needs, the Caruth Center and Collegiate Recovery have activities. Follow the links at the bottom of your screen.
WVU offers many services to students struggling during this pandemic, besides the links provided, including a crisis text line. If you feel you're in need for some immediate support, text WVU to 741-741 to reach a live professional counselor 24/7. Zach, Jillian, back to you at the Waterfront Studio.
During this time of isolation, social media has become a major communication tool when it comes to COVID-19 news for 2 out of 10 Americans.
And Jillian, that's really not a good thing, considering how much misinformation pops up on social media. Elena Dagenhart joins us now from Social Square to tell us more. Elena?
Thanks, Zach. Jillian, if you get your news from social media, you're more likely to believe false statements about COVID-19, like conspiracy theories and misguided vaccine information. And that's why Facebook has launched its biggest campaign yet, removing vaccine misinformation from their platform and creating a COVID-19 information center. I took a closer look and hit the streets to find out, what do you think?
Almost a year since the coronavirus was declared a pandemic, Facebook is finally cracking down on vaccine misinformation. Many posts on Facebook claim the vaccine has a microchip in it. Professor of journalism at WVU, Bob Britton, believes Facebook is changing, but we must do our part.
So we want to take this with a grain of salt. It's great that they're trying to take action, but we shouldn't be expecting tech companies or government or anybody else to swoop in and save us. We need to step up and take responsibility for our own information diet.
Facebook-owned Instagram had multiple anti-vaccination accounts before being banned. These accounts were titled Vaccine Truth, Vaccine Freedom, Anti-Vax Know the Facts, and CV-19 Vaccine Reactions.
With roughly 2.74 billion monthly active users, Facebook is the top social media site. The company has developed in the past couple weeks a COVID-19 information center where they tell users when they are able to get vaccinated and how many people in their area do have COVID at the moment.
Many people believe it is their First Amendment right to put what they want online. For Morgantown resident Skylar Merritt, she believes it is an infringement upon her rights that Facebook is now policing their site.
Personally, I've been using Facebook for a while now, and I think them taking down the anti-vaccine content is a violation of our freedom of speech because it limits our opinions.
While others believe that Facebook is being responsible and not allowing misinformation on their site.
Anti-vaccination content should be banned because it creates a lot of conspiracy around something that is trying to help us in the end.
Facebook is giving $120 million in advertisement credits to health ministries, United Nations agencies, and other organizations to promote vaccine and health information.
Facebook is also taking specific actions to target pages and groups where misleading claims about the COVID-19 vaccines flourish, including removing them if they break the rules. Facebook also said in a blog post that supporting public health officials in distributing vaccinations is a key focus this year.
Thanks, Elena. Another issue in this pandemic is homelessness. An estimated 17 million people are now homeless because of the pandemic, and many of them are children.
Our very own Claire O'Neill joins us now from Studio B at the Media Innovation Center to tell us more about homelessness among children and young adults with her segment, Storytelling with Data. Claire?
Jillian, Zach, before the COVID-19 pandemic, there was another epidemic in the United States, youth homelessness. It's estimated that 4.2 million kids and young adults experience homelessness each year. And because of the pandemic, 75% of youth homeless charities expect to see an increase in the numbers of young people homeless. This can be seen on the local level, where thousands are facing the challenges of being on their own right here in the Mountain State. I spoke with someone who was homeless for 4 years. Here's their story.
In West Virginia, youth homelessness is on the rise. Due to a rough childhood, 19-year-old Cal Fabrizio has suffered from this. From couch surfing from house to house,
to sleeping on this very porch you see here. And with no car, he now struggles to get from place to place and says he's extremely frustrated.
No one would give me a ride. No one cares. And I had enough money in my wallet to be like, hey, I'll reach you just, $20 if you can just give me a ride to Cameron. Something simple. No one cares about people like me.
In this public report published by West Virginia Kids Count, it shows during the 2018-2019 school year, more than 10,000 youth from the ages of 6 to 18 were homeless. That's a 14% increase since the last report, published in 2014 and 2015. Executive Director for Kids Count, Tricia Kendry, says it affects more children and young adults than we think.
I think that we've experienced with COVID and the opioid epidemic and the economy struggling in West Virginia, it can be you. I mean, it can be a family member. It can be someone you sit beside in school.
1 in every 24 students are without a home in West Virginia. And without a proper roof over their head, it can be hard to get by. Luckily, counties can apply for grants that are able to support and supply youth homeless with resources.
Kyle is still searching for a permanent home, but despite all he's gone through, he likes to stay positive.
Some would say, oh, you're on your own and everything, but at the same time, I learned it's a battle with the mind, but at the same time, I learned there's a victory in every battle at the end of the day.
1 out of 10 young adults are homeless in America, with numbers continuing to rise during the pandemic.
If you or someone you know is homeless, there are resources available. If you go to the address at the bottom of your screen, you'll find shelters and services available to help the homeless. This includes rental assistance programs, emergency food, and medical referrals. Back to you both at the Waterfront Studio.
Thanks, Claire. Well, Zach, coming up after the break, we'll hear from our education reporter about how a local high school is celebrating a national hero.
And anchor Kirsten Lindquist joins us to talk about one of Mountaineer basketball's brightest stars.
I'm Natalie Bowman, and straight ahead on WVU News, have you seen the movie Hidden Figures? One of its main characters went to school right here in Morgantown, and I'll tell you why Morgantown High School wants to honor this American hero.
I'm Kirsten Lindquist, and coming up on WVU News, I'll tell you about a Mountaineer up for one of the most prestigious awards in women's college basketball. Our award-winning WVU News continues in a moment.
When we started our journey, we had no idea where it would lead us. Until we found a place where experiences became a way of life, and connections became unbreakable bonds. For us, it's a second home. And wherever we roam, it will always be a part of us. The place we became Mountaineers.
When it first premiered in 2016, the movie Hidden Figures won 11 awards and drew attention to the African American women who helped America win the space race.
And one of those women is from Morgantown. Natalie Bowman is here to tell us about a local high school and how they are honoring one of these hidden figures. Natalie?
Thanks, Jillian. Zach, Dorothy Vaughan was NASA's first African-American supervisor. She was also known as a human computer for NASA during the space race, and later became the head of their analysis division. I caught up with people at Morgantown High School to see how they're trying to honor her legacy. Vaughan's family moved to Morgantown, West Virginia in 1917, and even though Morgantown High School has been in existence since 1883, because of segregation, Vaughan was not permitted to attend MHS, but the high school still wants to acknowledge Vaughan's significant contribution to the space program. Dorothy Vaughan would have been a Morgantown High School student, walking down these very hallways if schools hadn't been segregated in the 1920s. Vaughan moved to Morgantown at age 7, started high school at 11, and graduated from Beechhurst High School at 15 as her class valedictorian before starting her career at NASA.
It's important to honor Dorothy Johnson Vaughan because, when you think of the time period in which she lived and everything she accomplished, she's such an inspiration to students.
If her name sounds familiar, you've probably seen the movie Hidden Figures, the untold story of how 3 African-American women made significant contributions to the U.S. space program. And today, Vaughan is an American hero, especially to these high school students.
She's such a role model to look up to just because we have so much untapped potential, and she really went all the way. She went to NASA and she was a human computer, and that's just something that we get to look up to, and we know that we can do it as well.
Dorothy Vaughan was an African-American mathematician and human computer who spent her career helping America stay ahead of the curve during the space race. And this is where MHS is hoping to honor her, on its Alumni Wall of Fame. During her nearly 30 years at NASA, she was responsible for making complex calculations and analyzed data for aerospace engineers. Vaughan died in 2008 at the age of 98 years old. Since I reported on this story, Morgantown High School has decided to honor Vaughan with a ceremony in August, but her plaque and picture will be located next to the Alumni Hall of Fame and not within it, since she did not graduate from MHS.
Thanks, Natalie. Well, WVU's men's and women's basketball programs are having fantastic seasons so far.
And the end of the year awards for college basketball are just around the corner. Sports anchor Kirsten Lindquist joins us now in the studio to tell us more. Kirsten?
Thanks, Jillian. Zach, WVU is one of 3 schools in the country with players and coaches from both basketball teams nominated for Naismith Awards. The Naismith Awards are given to the most outstanding players and coaches in college basketball. I caught up with a WVU women's basketball player and asked her, what would it mean for you to win?
4 members of the WVU basketball program are nominated for some of the most prestigious awards in college basketball, the Naismith Awards. The Naismith Trophy is awarded to the Player of the Year for men's and women's college basketball.
With the adversity that I've been battling off the court, it would be a great balance to end my career off on a good note like that.
Back in January, WVU women's basketball player Kaiser Gondrzik's father suddenly passed away at 57 years old. Still, she leads the team in scoring, steals, and assists. Averaging 20.8 points, 1.9 steals, and 4.7 assists per game, her road to the top hasn't been easy.
And she had to get it the hard way. You know, she was picked not in it in the beginning, was picked honorable mention, Big 12. So she had to work her way into all these honors.
Gondrzik is the first women's basketball player to be nominated for the award since Tenise Martin made the preseason watch list back in 2019, and the first ever to make the midseason team. This award nomination makes her one of the top 30 players in the country. According to ESPN's latest WNBA mock draft, she's projected to be a 3rd-round pick, and Gondrzik hopes to follow in her late father's footsteps to the NBA.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad. You know, it was hard for him getting up every morning during the pandemic, you know, at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and being that consistent. Days where I didn't want to go, he was the reason why I did. So the recognition is far bigger than me. It's far bigger than the program. I'm just trying to honor his legacy because at the end of the day, Kaiser's not on my back. It's Gondrzik.
Gondrzik says she owes this award and the season all to her dad.
Unfortunately, Kaiser did not make the semifinals, but she says it was an honor to just be nominated. She still plans to follow in her father's footsteps to pro ball after she graduates. Well, Kaiser wasn't the only Mountaineer nominated for a Naismith Award. Mike Carey, Bob Huggins, and Derek Culver were also nominated. But the men's basketball team's season was put on hold for 2 weeks when everyone, except for 4 players, were put in quarantine. This time of isolation has negatively impacted their conditioning, and playing time has also been affected. Sports reporter Eden Douglas has more.
Coronavirus is the opponent no one prepared for this season. When an athlete is in quarantine or isolation, they become unconditioned and lack proper nutrition. After losing 18 pounds, players like Emmett Matthews have to put in the extra work.
First came back from the break, I was a little tired, but you know, obviously that's going to go away with, you know, a few practices. And, you know, once you start getting back into shape and, you know, doing all the extra stuff that I was doing, you know, you kind of just get back into game shape pretty quick.
Due to positive cases within the men's basketball program, players were not able to enter the practice facility in order to keep up with proper conditioning. However, conditioning is not the only issue. Nutrition is a big factor, and Derek Culver and Emmett Matthews know firsthand just how important it is.
It hurt real bad, to be honest with you.
As you guys can see, I wasn't really myself the first 2 games. I can tell, like me personally, I can feel like, that I'm coming back, but it most definitely took a toll on me a lot.
Culver and Matthews are working to get back to averaging 38 minutes a game, but head athletic trainer Randy Metters says it's all about balance for Division I athletes.
I mean, our coach likes to practice 2.5 to 3 hours a day. That's a lot, and especially in season, and you have a game the next day. So how much more conditioning can you get out of a player?
Head coach Bob Huggins says he doesn't want people to feel sorry for his team because it is happening to other teams too. Eden Douglas, WVU Sports, Morgantown.
Thanks for that report, Eden. Coach Bob Huggins is one of 10 semifinalists for the Naismith Coach of the Year, and he's also 1 win away from having 900 career wins as a coach. When he hits that, he will be one of only 6 Division I coaches to do so in college basketball history.
Thanks, Kirsten. If anyone deserves that recognition, it has to be Coach Huggins. Well, Zach, they call it freezing for a reason. We're talking about the Special Olympics polar plunge. And from what I've been hearing, you just might have jumped in that water that day.
Well, Jillian, it is true. I did take the freezing dip into Cheat Lake, all to raise awareness for this annual fundraising event that happens in the middle of winter at locations all across the Mountain State.
It's Jedi, a pirate. No, it's a stick family. It takes a larger-than-life personality.
Support all year long, not just today, all year long. Boom!
To jump into Cheat Lake. That kind of passion is why people brave the freezing water. Just ask these plungers.
It is below freezing. It is beyond freezing. I can't feel my legs.
Polar Plunges is the largest fundraising activity of the year for West Virginia Special Olympics. And thanks to all of these people braving the snow, the cold, and the ice, the games will go on. Let's do this.
Again, our program is made available at no cost to our Special Olympics athletes nor their families, right? So we want to make sure that we raise the funds necessary for them to have access to year-round sports training and competition and to give them opportunities that they truly treasure.
And for Jordan Alonso, taking the plunge means paying it forward.
15 years ago, I skied past some Special Olympics athletes just trying their hardest, out there having a blast. This means so much to them. This whole organization, Special Olympics West Virginia, means so much to these athletes that we have statewide.
The money raised here today will provide year-round training in 18 Olympic-style sports for athletes with intellectual disabilities.
This was the 16th year for the Morgantown Polar Plunge, and that event alone raised over $31,000 for Special Olympics.
Zach, that is just so great to hear. And I cannot even imagine jumping in that water like you did.
Anything for a good cause. Well, that'll do it for WVU News. I'm Zach Hawk.
And I'm Jillian Winoski. You can visit us online at our website, and you can also watch all of our shows on YouTube. Please follow us and our reporters on Twitter. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.